Welcome to the Money Mentors Podcast.
Welcome to Money Mentors. Laurel Stewart here with Gerald Green, one of our fiduciary advisors. And I don't know if it's just me or if you listeners feel this too, but hasn't this month just been odd with the amount of rain that we've had in July? Like, I'm used to having 90-degree weather to where I can't step outside without sweating and want to just be in the AC. But now it's like we're getting cozy, we're doing board games, we're watching movies. It's just a weird time.
It's muggy out. All that rain brings mugginess. So
true.
I can do without the humidity.
Yeah.
Taylor did come in. My husband, for those of you who are just listening, he's one of our advisors as well here. But he came in this past week from outside and he had said that. He's like, it's so muggy out there. I haven't even done anything. And he's just got beads of sweat. He's a sweatband kind of guy, and that's why.
That's why what you need to do, listeners, is turn us on in your boat out on the lake.
Absolutely.
It's much cooler that way.
Yeah.
For
You stay
everything.
Right? Yeah. Just to have us on the boat while you're drinking a barley pop and
What's a barley pop?
a beer.
Oh,
Barley.
Okay.
barley, get it.
Pop.
There's so many new things you're teaching me, Gerald.
I know.
Well, that's what we do here on Money Mentors. We teach you terms you've never even heard of. Barley Pop's a new one on me and Laurel this weekend. But hey, tell us what your questions are too for your Money Mentors. And in fact, here on the show, we're inviting our listeners this summer. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit cooler by the time our first Friday event rolls around in August. But we want to remind you, we're opening up that invitation to our listeners. Meet your Money Mentors, Laurel, Gerald, Gary, Taylor, Corey, all of the team at Matson Financial Services. It's a great way to do that. Visit us online, matsonfinancial.com. Click on the events tab there. Be sure to RSVP, and we'll see you on that first Friday come August. But cruel summer or not here, our summer savings series continues this week here on Money Mentors. If you flash back just a couple of years ago to 2022 at this time when inflation was at a 40-year high and a lot of investors were snapping up what's known as I-bonds. They were paying out a record 9.6% at the time. But USA Today points out, Gerald and Laurel, that variable rate is now a third of that amount. So they say you might want to consider selling those I-bonds if you bought them just a couple of years ago. Now, I know I heard a lot about it at the time. We talked about it here on the show at the time. But if some of our listeners do still have those I-bonds, are there some better options out there for those savings now?
Absolutely. But first, I want to caution, give as much information as possible. If you sell an I-bond before 5 years, you are going to lose the previous quarter's interest.
Oh, okay.
So there is a penalty for selling that I-bond if you haven't held it for 5 years. You have to hold it for at least 1 year before you can sell it. But if you sell it or redeem it, I should say, before the 5-year date, you're losing the previous quarter's interest. So, based off the rates right now, it's a smaller amount. So it's not a huge deal because the government does limit how many I-bonds you can buy. But I just want everyone to know that that's kind of the public service announcement of the day. It's one of the silver linings, I guess, is the best word or phrase I can think of with these higher interest rates. When you have liquid cash at the bank, you're making good money right now. So it's easy, it's free. When we're talking about I-bond rates for May through October right now, it's 4.28%, which is pretty good, right? There's other banks that'll give you a little more. There's some banks out there that still won't offer you 1%. So the big point or emphasis here is you got to ask the question, your money that is liquid to you that's in the bank, what I tell my clients is your basic expectation, it should at least equal inflation, whatever your rate of return is, because otherwise you're actually losing money. That $50,000 you have in the bank is not going to buy the same thing 1 year from now if you're not getting at least the rate of inflation there. So make sure first and foremost that you're having a conversation and taking a look, what is your savings account offering? What type of return or interest are you getting on it? And then can you do better? They may have a lot of the times, if you just ask your bank, hey, do you have a different account that I can put this money into that's going to give me better than 0.05%? and chances are they do have something, but you got to ask the questions.
Yeah. And you could be like me. We talked about doing a mid-year financial checkup last week here on Money Mentors. So I did some digging around. My bank didn't offer it. So I went to a different bank with a big portion of my emergency savings because I thought, this is not making anything here where it's sitting. So sometimes some of those regular moves make sense. And I think right now, we're focused on inflation and saving what we can, taking advantage of those interest rates. It's also a time when taxes, I think, are a concern for especially those who have saved well over the years. Many people are actually flocking to states right now without income taxes. Now, we went and asked some of our friends, including a few who live in other high tax states, if they've ever considered a move just for the simple reason of taxes. Listen to what they said.
Probably every time I get a paycheck, I bring it up to my wife. There's a number of states that we've discussed, especially a lot of people from California, Idaho, Texas, South Carolina. But, there's a family component that goes with it.
Yeah, I feel, though, is that if you move, it's eventually going to catch up with you in other states. It's just going to bleed on through.
Possibly, yeah. I just haven't sat down seriously thought about it. Maybe the East Coast, because I heard it's a little less expensive than the West Coast, where I live. I love living where I live. It's the economic atmosphere that makes it tough with the high taxes, the cost of living. Gasoline is almost double what it is in the rest of the country. Everything's so expensive. And once you retire and you're on a fixed income, your earning days are over, and so you're susceptible to those higher prices.
But it's interesting to note here, Realtor.com points out, moving to one of these no income tax states may not actually save you more money overall. So what factors do you think we need to consider before we just pack up and move into retirement simply because of this tax issue?
Heck, even the movers are going to cost more.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
This is becoming a more and more common scenario post-COVID with the job market being able to work anywhere, right? If you can work remotely, maybe your kids grew up and they moved to a different state and that you want to move there. Well, why don't we just move down there, and when we retire, we can come back to the house in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
But you have to look at all the numbers as best you can with the information you had. I did this with a client not that long ago, Joe and Katie. She got a job working down in Texas. Great job, loves the job. She's now down there, and the conversation was, well, should we just move down to Texas? They don't have state income tax because the money that Katie will be making in Texas is taxable in the state of Michigan.
Oh.
Because she is not becoming a resident of the state of Texas. Huh. So they're going to have to pay Michigan tax on that money that she made in Texas. So it's
Uncle Sam.
Right. So we looked at, okay, well, there's our baseline. If you move down there, well, how much are you saving? So we took a look at that. We got that number. Then we said, well, since if you do become a resident of Texas, now you lose that homestead property tax exemption on the house you have here in Michigan because you said you wanted to keep it. And that offset the taxes because the amount of property taxes they would have to pay on that home exceeded the amount in income tax they would pay. So you've got to look at all the variables, not to mention the cost of, now gas was cheaper down in Texas, I will say that, but you got to look at all of the factors and just make it a math. And maybe I do that too much. I try to boil everything down to math because I can solve math equations.
Where we excel, yeah.
Right? But beyond that, though, it does bring up the family aspect. Do you want to move away from the kids to save 4.25% in taxes?
Right.
As that's a little harder in the math equation, but you have to look at everything.
And we always try to tell clients who are thinking about relocating, if they haven't been to the area before or are curious to know, like, I want it to be Florida, but don't know where, go test it out, right? Visit around, stay for a little bit, get a lay of the land so you can really understand if you were to live there, what does that look like? Are you going to get bored? Do you want to do something? But other things to think about too in moving are insurance costs on your home, right? If you think about these awesome places like, let's say, Florida and Texas, they're susceptible to hurricanes and all that comes with that. And then property taxes you still have, and then you still have to find your primary care, your doctors, if you have a trust in an attorney, that's not going to be valid across state lines. So you have to redo that depending on, your homestead kind of situation too. Now, the good news is you don't have to change advisors. If you're with us here at Mattson Financial, we work across the country. We're in over 20 states, so that's the easy thing. We'll meet you where you're at and come visit you, or, definitely virtual meetings too. But lots of things to think about the holistic plan. And if that's something that you want to do, we're going to definitely help you do it. But if it's only based on the numbers, we're going to give you a lot of information there too. But we want it to be an emotional decision. It feels really good. This is going to help your health or whatever that is. It's going to make you happy. That's what needs to be your driver.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Fee-based financial planning and investment services are offered by Mattson Financial Services, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance products and services offered through Lakeview Financial Group, LLC, Mattson Financial Services, LLC, and Lakeview Financial Group are affiliated. To find out if Mattson Financial Services is licensed in your state, please call 800-536-8907.